Dungeon Masters of the world, what has been your favorite items to give to your players? I gave my players a modified version of the Ifrit bottle. The Ifrit inside was weaker than the standard version, and the high roll didn't cast Wish. Instead, it granted a magic item. The first time my players used the bottle and I asked them to roll, they freaked out. The roll allowed the Ifrit to fight alongside them. But after that battle, they were afraid of what rolling poorly might do, so they were too worried to use it again. However, they did talk about the Ifrit as if he were their nuclear option, something to use only if they were in a situation where they might die anyway. Otherwise, they felt uneasy about even holding the bottle, fearing the Ifrit might break out. This is less about the item itself and more about reinforcing how special it is. A wand of magic missile isn't that memorable, but if you make them say the activation word SPAGOOTERS out loud each time they use it, it becomes much more memorable. Intelligent items that can communicate in various ways tend to be engaging. It's generally about having a fun description and then not letting the players off the hook when they use it. For example, hammering home that their +1 sword is a solid shard of jade that leaves a contrail behind after they swing it makes it much more unique. I had one player use the Cloak of Many Fashions as if it were a wearable green screen. Sometimes he would even have words flash across it like, "The heroes are here! Ha ha ha!" Maybe not 100% rules as written usage, but we all loved it. This one's making me laugh even before I read it. Excalibur. One of my player's barbarians ripped it out of the ground with a nat 20. Later, he started taking on some paladin levels and became a great leader for the group. After a big kill, I had the boulder crumble off, revealing Excalibur's full potential. That was a fun campaign. All I see is Chris from Resident Evil 5 going, "Wesker!" and punching the hell out of a boulder. Recently, I gave my party a glamour charm amulet that casts an illusion on the wearer for as long as they have the amulet on. Now, the kicker is that the illusion is always of the same person, a middle-aged blonde human in a khaki suit. It doesn't matter if the wearer is a different size, the illusion always appears the same. My players have named him Alan Baker. Last session, they had to do a heist and break a dog out of a jail. It's a long story. And one of them asked, "Can we turn the dog into Alan Baker?" I said yes, and hilarity ensued. I started an adventure where all 5 players were at level 6. So I randomly rolled from the tables and let them sort out who got what. One item was a +3 semi-intelligent sword. It would sound off like a rooster right at dawn, and then complain loudly if it hadn't tasted enemy blood by high noon. As a result, the party had to make a variety of alternative plans to avoid being discovered and had to go early or late to some raids, etc. The player who got it loved it, +3. But the others in the party, well, they despised it. The player eventually traded it in at a supply shop for a +2 greatsword and something else. Then it somehow reappeared when some knights from the city came upon the players at dawn. I haven't given it yet, but at the end of the last session, my players came across a pure white Harengon named Alice. From her, they will receive a special coin, which I have yet to name. After a long rest, flip the coin and roll a d4. On heads or tails, you may respectively add or subtract the result of the d4 to any roll. This may be done a number of times equal to your proficiency. Alice will much later be revealed as Timora, goddess of fortune, gambling on the success of our heroes, with the coin being her way of hedging her bet a little. Now, I'm a huge fan of lesser rarity magic items. A lot of them come in clutch for the party in the most unexpected of ways. I gave my party a ring that can cast Tiny Servant and is the equivalent of Tinkerer's Tools. It gives the wearer proficiency and can help repair or destroy items. It's been really fun so far. I also enjoy limited use items, like wands with only a few charges. I don't tell them it only has 2 charges left, I just make a note, and when they use the last charge, it breaks. I have a player who's a dragonborn fighter with the Outlander background, which lets him hunt and forage for the party's food. He later took the chef feat. He just loves role-playing as a master chef when he's not beheading vampires. So I had him find the Cookbook of Bourdain the Wanderer. While traveling, whenever he spends a long rest in a new terrain type, going from swamp to forest or whatever, he can roll on a table to determine what wild ingredients he finds near their campsite. These ingredients correspond to different recipes in the book. Essentially, you're rolling on a table of consumable foods to create, from Dakala Avance, which gives you a 6th level or lower spell slot back when consumed, to simpler fare like warm cookies that make you cold resistant for an hour, also make you think of Grandma. It was really well received, and I put so many foods on the table, including many taken from Kobold's Press's Vault of Magic, that even after a year of play, he still hasn't made everything. I gave my party's fighter a sentient, legendary great axe possessed by a slaughter-loving Balor demon. The party can use Greater Restoration to halt the demon's possession of the PC, in addition to the player making another save when damage is taken. However, there have been occasions where those two team members were split up, resulting in the Balor demon possessing the fighter. In one instance, he killed an orc king, and in another, he was forced to kill an entire bar full of pirates, and the friendly NPC companion they've had for a majority of the campaign. The rest of the party is now looking for ways to remove the possession, so it's becoming a fun player-driven plot point. The fighter PC loves the axe since it's otherwise juiced, but he knows his time with it is likely short. A player asked for googly eyes that you could put on things to make them sentient, like a chair or something. I figured I'd mess with them by making whatever they made sentient instantly freak out, run around town, breaking stuff here and there just for a good laugh. Then they put the eyes on a super important story item right away. So it kind of worked out better than expected. I have emotions and feelings, and why am I a chair? Myself and the other DM in my play group had a discussion and made a rule. No more +1 weapons. What we mean is that all magic weapons must have a name and something extra. Our usual go-to is a cantrip that can be cast once per day. So my friend gave his ranger a +1 longbow that can cast the cantrip Gust 3 times a day. He named it Summer Breeze. A wooden cup that, when you speak the command word and name a liquid, will fill to the brim with that liquid if it has previously contained it. Ooh, it cannot replicate magical liquids, so no potions, and cannot replicate compound liquids. It also has no more durability than a standard wooden cup. I gave my son an old rusty ring that didn't seem to be magical, but it latched onto his finger when he picked it up and wouldn't let go. He could feel the magic coursing through his veins, but he couldn't figure out what it did, until he got cocky and tried to fight a young white dragon by himself. Then, the Ring of True Resurrection finally took effect. Lol, it was his first campaign and I was running a modded Dragon of Icespire Peak for him and his companion. I let him die twice before he learned to be a bit more careful. Items that are a one-time use or limited use like potions and scrolls are great because you can give out a lot of them. Even if one is broken, it's only broken once, and you can remove it from your list or give a weaker version from then on. Give them 20 swords, and they can still only use 2 at a time max. Give them 20 potions, and things are gonna get really screwy. As a DM, my favorite thing to give a party early on is a bag of magic beans. It's the ultimate I fucking dare you item, and it tells your players that you aren't shying away from both magic items and player agency. Once I had a player find a magical core used to power flying ships. I hadn't prepared anything for that and I was just winging it, but he suddenly, out of nowhere, broke into a military storage facility and took a small chest with him. I never expected him to succeed, but his dice rolls were amazing. He then tried to use the core to somehow deal magical damage, and I allowed it because he was really proud of his idea. and I told him it would deal 3d6 radiation damage on contact. But on the flip side, also 3d6 damage to himself if he touched it, as it would unload itself into his magical circuit. Originally, I planned for him to throw it against a big enemy that seemed too strong for the group, or at least use it to power the machinery in a magical dungeon. But well, you know. He then spent half the campaign building himself an Iron Man-style arm, trying to use the core as a magic missile weapon without hurting himself. By the end, he had an artificial arm that could fire a short-range magic missile, dealing 6d6 radiation damage twice a day. This was after 3 quest sessions, with each one adding 1d6 to the damage and removing 1d6 from the damage he would take. I even let him add a slot for an additional ruby, sapphire, or other gem to change the element of the damage for a day. But the gem would get destroyed in the process. He was okay with all of this, and it's still probably the highest investment one of my players has put into the game to fulfill his own idea. The thing was way too powerful at that stage, but my player felt amazing, and the group was always hyped when he used it. So, why not? Yeah, you made fun for everyone, and honestly, that's kind of the point of being a DM, isn't it? I have a habit of giving my players cool items with crippling drawbacks or incredibly complicated features that make them carefully consider the situations presented to them. A lot of these land incredibly well, though a few of them backfire in some capacity. My current favorite is an offhand short sword for one of my players with a 2-weapon fighting build. It does no damage when used on their turn, gives a +2 shield bonus, and has a chance to open a small temporal rift at random angles from which its blade attacks if the wielder is ever hit. Basically, the player gets to make an attack roll each time they are struck by an enemy up to 100 feet away, as long as the sword remains in the PC's hand. The base damage is low enough that he only ever uses it when he is on the defensive. The most recent item that fell flat is a sword that the party's paladin is carrying. Every time he hits an enemy and does at least 5 damage, the sword gains a charge, up to a maximum of 10. Now they can expend a charge to get +1 damage for each charge used. That player sighs exasperatedly whenever he remembers that the sword has that trait and recalculates damage during boss fights. I thought that one would be more fun, but it just seems to inconvenience him. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course let us know down below what have been your favorite items that you actually gave to your players. And if you want to help keep the lights on, make sure to sign up for a membership. You don't have to, but it does help, and it gets you a lot of extra content, from possibly streams to definitely outtakes, and of course, early access to all of our videos. We love you all. See you next time. Bye for now.